Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I guess we're about to get started. Just a little bit about my background again. I did my master's at LSU, and while I was working there, I was working on a 2-acre vegetable farm where we did everything by hand, working the ground and everything. So I guess I like to do hard stuff. I guess it's just how I like to roll between doing this and extension. But while I was there, it really gave me a love for, natural gardening, and I really got interested in looking into, trying to work with nature as opposed to working against nature. And so, I've listened to a lot of podcasts on homesteading and permaculture, which is a different presentation that I have. But I was asked to do a presentation by Dr. McPeak, a forestry series, and so I gave her a couple ideas that I had, and this was one of them, and I presented on this at Garvin, and a few of the master gardeners came to that presentation. So the presentation that I have today is Forest Gardening, Designing a Food Forest Guild. Before I get started, I always have it all on my presentations, a slide talking about how the University of Arkansas is a institution that offers all of its programs and services without regard to race, color, sex, gender identity, sexual orientation, national origin, religion, age, disability, marital or veteran status, genetic information, or any other legally protected status, and is affirmative action, equal opportunity employer. And just as an aside before I get into it, there has been something brought to my attention that some comments have been made that were deemed disrespectful. So I just want to remind everyone to treat everyone with respect and to treat each other as you want to be treated. So now into the presentation. So an overview, food forest basics. Can I get out? Let me get up here somehow. Get out of the way. There we go. This is so much better. So we're going to go over what are guilds, how they work, guild examples, design strategy, and a lot of this is just basic stuff that, for master gardeners, like we talked about site selection and stuff like that. So I've got about 45 slides in here, but I'm going to skip through most of them. I'm just going to let you look at them, and then if you want to look at them in further detail, I'll be more than happy to send you the PowerPoint. But when I did this presentation at Garvin, it took me an hour and a half. And we have 30 minutes, so I'm not going to go through everything that crazy. But I just wanted y'all to see it. So what is forest gardening? It's a design agronomic system based on trees, shrubs, perennials, and annuals. The goal is to mimic a natural forest. We look outside and, you see forest everywhere. It's the predominant, vegetation of our landscape. And it's like, the thought is, if we can just mimic that environment, things grow in that system already. If we can just substitute things we care about into those niches, then it should work to our benefit. And the goal is to create a stable and sustainable ecosystem with great diversity. Diversity, as they say, is the spice of life. And it really helps with your soil ecology. The more different things that you have planted in the soil, the better it is for your soil microbes. And that's really where all our soil fertility comes from, is from the soil ecology and the soil life. So why do we care about it? It's a biologically sustainable and resilient ecosystem with the goal of being resilient to changing weather and climates. And perennials just tend to be more, resistant to weather changes than annuals. So that's kind of the thought pattern behind that. These are often productive, yielding a number, often large, number of different, either diverse products or qualities of products. They're designed to be low maintenance. Most people don't go out and manage their wild forest. So once you get your food forest up and established through that babying period that we have to baby all our trees through, then at that point it should be low maintenance. So these are some of the products that you can produce from it: fruits, nuts, leaves, herbs, honey, firewood, fodder. It's only limited by your willingness to do it and your space and your creativity. So just kind of whatever, you can make it whatever you want it to be. What are food forest guilds? Guilds are an assembly of plants that work together to a common goal or set of goals. It's the basic unit of a food forest. And it typically grows in a polyculture instead of a monoculture. And plant guilds are a human construct because we select plants for our benefit. We substitute forest or woodland species with edible tree species, bushes, perennial vegetables, vines, and annuals. So how do they work? It's the combination of the form and function that we find in nature, mimicking the structure of forests, doing what nature could do if it's left to its own devices. Using perennial plants gives it longevity, from a few years to many years, depending on the selection of plants. So this is the 7 layers of every forest: the overstory trees, and then the understory tree layer, the shrub layer, and then the herbaceous layer, and then roots, if you want to do any kind of roots, and then the ground covers like strawberries or just like your normal ornamental, and then the vine layer, which we don't really talk about the vines very much. We don't have enough sunlight for that unless you like doing an arbor or something like that. We're not going to put any vines in our trees. This is more for like the tropics. So you can make your food forest as simple as you want it. You want an apple tree and a blueberry bush and some strawberries, boom, food forest done. Or you can do you can hit all 7 layers. So it's just up to you and what you want and what you want to deal with and what you want to mess with. So I can hit all of those in there. Layer descriptions. Canopy is occupied by your tallest tree. Typically that's going to be your fruit tree or your nut tree. You want to make sure that they're always getting the full amount of sunlight. And this determines the amount of sunlight that falls to the lower levels. So if you get a big pecan tree, the diameter on a pecan tree is 45 feet as opposed to an apple tree, which might be anywhere from 10 to 12 depending on, or even bigger depending on what size, if you get a full size or a dwarf. They're going to be your primary consumers of nutrients and water, and then some examples of pecan, walnut, apple, pear, anything like that. I don't recommend stone fruits, so don't plant them. I'm all about less work, and having to spray them doesn't fall under less work. So, subcanopy layer, fruit, you can have a regular sized fruit tree, and you can plant a dwarf tree underneath it, so that's where that falls into. It can't be the same as the canopy, like if you want to do an apple tree, apples need a pollinator, so you can have a crab apple for the wildlife, or you can have just a different variety that we use for our consumption that pollinates it at the same time. Crab apples are just good because they have a long pollinating window. So typically dwarf or semi-dwarf versions in that case, pear, apple, fig. So shrub layer produce fruits and nuts, attract wildlife and pollinator habitat, insect habitat. Shade tolerant, you want to add diversity of products to the system. Blueberries, blackberries, raspberries. In all of these, I like to eat the stuff I plant, and that's probably my bias. But a lot of these you can substitute any ornamental that you want. It can serve multiple purposes. It can be beautiful and provide you food. So, herbaceous layer, herbs, flowers, mulch producers. And this can be many functions. Insect habitat, pollinator habitat. Oregano, mint, comfrey. Comfrey is a great mulch producer. You can just keep chopping it and dropping it, and you make your own mulch. So, ground cover or creeper layer. Low ground plants that form a living mulch and keep our soil intact and covered. Suppress weeds, build fertility, and conserve moisture. Clover, strawberry, and buckwheat are good ones, and this will often fluctuate based on the time of year. Vertical climber layer, kind of like what I talked about earlier. I've seen some that people actually put in an arbor, and they do like grapes or muscadines, whatever vining plant that they want. But in the tropics, they put them on the trunks of the trees. But if you're skilled at pruning, you can make it work. But that might be too much work. So unless you just want to put an arbor in, I would kind of recommend not doing that part of it. They can grow in any layer, just kind of like the vines typically are more aggressive. So just all about figuring out how you're going to manage that or not. Grapes, kiwi, hops, all of those are good for that. And an underground layer, the root crops, sweet potatoes make a great ground cover, and then you can go back and harvest the sweet potatoes. So, and then they also help condition the soil if you throw in like turnips and radishes, those daikons, they help break up the soil and help relieve the compaction, if that's something that you're dealing with. Artichoke, daikon, radish, sweet potato. So what's the relationship between all these different layers that I just talked about? we make use of that certain ecological niche that performs a certain role. Each plant is different, and by combining plants that require different nutrients, environments, this minimizes competition, which is why we can put all these plants together in the first place to make this ecosystem function. 80% of the plants have neutral reactions with each other. They don't harm or hinder or help. 10% of plants have positive interactions, and then the other 10% have negative. So we really want to focus on that 10% of plants that have positive interactions with each other. This is an example of an oak guild. A lot of the work for food forests has been done in the northern part of the country. So when you pull up things that are pictures or designs, we'll have stuff like gooseberries and currants, and we are not cold enough to grow some of these things. So just because it's on these pictures, don't plant some of these. Make sure you always figure out the chilling hours and what hardness zones that they can thrive in. And so this is just an example, there's comfrey underneath the drip line, there's a hazel bush, strawberries and borage, wild ginger, horseradish, and then this is an oak tree guild because I don't want to have to pick fruit or anything, I just want some nice shade trees. So that's why I included that one, so you can see the different uses. And then this is just a couple pictures of some really simple food forests. This is just a fruit tree with some comfrey, and just chop and drop the comfrey and mulch it. And then this is another fruit tree with some strawberries as ground cover. So it can be something that's just really simple, or you can do something like this, which I don't think we can grow rhubarb here. I think it's too warm. But you can have nasturtiums and sunflowers, dandelions, marigolds, raspberries, radish for the root layer, clover for a ground cover, oregano, sage, onion. It's too warm here for currants. But you can make it as big as you want to, or you can make it as small. And these are just some more examples, just kind of how they're laid out and how they're differently designed. And this is the one that has the grape arbor. So instead of their anchor plant being a fruit tree, they had an arbor put in and they put grapes on it. And then they have it on a hugelkultur rain garden as well. Clove currant, blueberry, hosta berry, strawberry ground cover. They have some corn and apples in there. Kale, clover, woodchip pathway. And then just another example. So this alder tree is in here because smooth alders are a native legume tree. So they'll actually put nitrogen into your soil. So that's why that's in there. And then, there's more comfrey, bush cherry, mixed semi-dwarf fruit arbor. So this is kind of like, one of these is a guild, and this is another guild. Once you get multiple guilds, you have a food forest. Which, one guild can still be a food forest, but that's when they actually call them like a super forest, or a super food forest. Guild design strategy, you can either go based off your habitat, so you can just wander around town or the neighboring counties and see what kind of plants that are growing wildly that if you find cultural varieties that we've made to be more productive, then you can just insert those plants into the environment. There's a mulberry right beside my house that I don't know if someone planted, but it's barely gets any sunlight and always puts on a bunch of berries. And when I looked them up, mulberries actually do produce well in the shade. And so that's an example of habitat mimicry. It's if I want to find a semi-dwarf version of a mulberry, I can put that in underneath my main canopy tree, and it'll do better with less sunlight. And so that's kind of how that would work for habitat mimicry. Most people don't do that. They say that's too much work. I'm just going to pick what I want and just plant that. So. Because I'm not going to do that either, to be quite honest, but I just wanted to mention it. And a lot for permaculture, why I put random assembly in here, is when you're putting different design elements in, they say to do a random assembly just to pick the 10 or 15 that you want and just throw them together. And then just maybe I didn't think of that combination. Sometimes we're just so preoccupied with our own biases that we don't think of doing some things we hadn't thought of. So that's a big proponent of that. Skip through this. So, site assessment for perennials is a big thing. Making sure that they're not going to get drained out is huge. You don't want to plant something where it's going to, die from being too wet. So I'm not going to go into super great detail on that. Choosing plants, pick plants that, that are sold at local nurseries that know we do well, because you want to have success. You have success, you're going to care about it. If everything dies, you're going to be mad at me, and then you're not going to do it anymore. So, don't pick some crazy variety like, oh, man, this sounds awesome. Like, no, pick something you know works, and then, grow from there. Going back to plant hardness zone, just making sure that those plants fall within those zones. Plant function, plant form, site conditions, and then, each individual plant needs its own thing, so just making sure you do the proper research. When you're buying plants from a nursery, a lot of times they'll have this information on their website. So, I'm going to skip all this because y'all should know all of it, or I'm taking your badge. Choosing fruit varieties. You can either adapt the site to your plants or adapt your plants to the site. Always adapt your plans to the site because your site is going to kick your butt if you don't. So I'm going to skip through all this. Those are just some considerations for picking fruit varieties. More considerations for choosing things, chilling hours. My father-in-law plants some stuff that needs more chilling hours than it gets here, so they're never going to put on anything, so just a reminder about that. And then these are some different functions that your guild can serve, Skip. So this is kind of more of the meat of the presentation. This is actually going through and designing it. You want to minimize competitions, so don't, put two plants that get the same size right beside each other. Go canopy, follow the order of the different layers. Vary your plant heights, include plants with roots of varied depths. Space the plants correctly is probably the biggest one. You always want to go by their mature diameter. Because if you plant your semi-dwarf tree where that pecan tree's diameter is going to grow to, it's going to get shaded out by the time it gets bigger. So, and then be aware of allelopathy, like black walnuts will put out chemicals in your soil that won't let anything else grow. So this is kind of how you would go about designing it. You would pick your canopy layer, and it doesn't have to be a minimum size. That's kind of more determined by your site and how much space you have. So it could be that pecan tree that gets big, or it could be, your main tree could be a sub-canopy tree like a semi-dwarf fruit tree. You always want to mark where north is on your map, and then you want to sketch in the canopy tree, and this is the mature diameter, and these little lines and dots is all the drip line on it. And then you want to leave enough space on the south for other plants to receive sun, because when the sun swings, it swings southward, kind of like this. And so you want to make sure your taller plants go on the north side, and then your smaller plants go on the south side. Shrub layer, it's after the canopy layer. Careful consideration due to light requirements to maximize production. Some of the shrubs do better with less light, like blackberry only requires like 6 hours of sun, and some of them might need more, so just making sure you keep that in mind. Keep them away from the young fruit trees, ideally by a distance equal to the diameter of the shrub. Don't ever want them falling underneath the drip line. That water is going to fall from the tree, get your shrubs wet, get disease. And then the drip line is just where it's like this part of the canopy, when the tree gets saturated with water, the water starts falling. So that's why it's called the drip line. Okay, good. Perennial ground cover layer. Herbaceous perennials, evergreen perennials, creeping or running perennials, bulbs. Like you can have daffodils, spring ephemerals. All the spring ephemerals are a good selection because you can have them in the spring, and then you can have something else after them. So that you can have beauty in the spring and then have something else after them. So I thought that was a cool idea when I was looking. Aim to plant in patches of one or a few species. You kind of want to do it in clumps. They'll do better in clumps instead of having one. And I always say one is none, two is one, three is two. So playing a little bit extra doesn't hurt, and they'll grow to fill in that space. There's different forms. Some that are, they're clumps, or they're running, or they're self-seeding. So you want to make sure they self-seed in the shade. Or you can do hardscape boundaries too. You don't have to just have plants everywhere. You could do like brick or rock or something like that. So you can have mulchers and nitrogen-fixing plants. They can be placed on the drip line or closer to the tree to help gather nutrients to the tree. And then if your mulching plants are right here, if you're trying to, mulch this area to keep, maybe weeds out, you just chop them and then just throw them on, and they'll keep growing back. You can also plant your pollinator plants or, your habitat for insects. The aromatic plants, a lot of the herbs will help deter pests because they They come in, they hit the smell, and they get lost. So it's not foolproof, but we try. And then plants such as mint, oregano, and lemon balm, they can be placed under the tree in the shade. But if they're placed under the tree, you need to make sure that they're shade tolerant. Is the main thing. Some of the herbs are more shade tolerant than others. The final ground cover can be installed. Nitrogen fixer. You can do veg, clover, or lupins, or you can do fruit production like strawberries. These layers are the most versatile and experimental because mostly they're annuals. So this is like if you want to try something crazy, you can do it here. I bought some seed for some hairy vetch, that's the fava bean, and I want to try to plant that next year. I'm trying to do, you always want to do your site prep a year in advance and then plant the year after. So I'm trying to do all my site prep this fall for my yard and then do my food forest next year in my yard. Unfortunately, I want to do it now, but if I do it, I know everything's going to die. So I'm trying to tell myself to be patient. I've been getting emails from Stark Brothers, the nursery in Louisiana. Hey, Aaron, all these plants are on sale. Do you want some? And I've been real strong about not bending and buying them and then having to keep on them for a year before I can plant them. So. And then the climbing layer, like I talked about a few times already, so I'll kind of just skip through here. Like I talked about earlier, there are some nitrogen-fixing trees. Really, one of the only ones native to here is a smooth alder. The mimosa trees that are everywhere, they're actually nitrogen-fixing trees. So if you have one already in your landscape and you don't want to get rid of it, it's kind of technically invasive. I'm not going to recommend you plant it, but if you want to incorporate that into your food forest, then just leave it there. And you can actually chop and drop the mimosas when you prune it. You can prune the branches off of them and drop them, and then that'll be fertilizer. And whenever you're pruning, when you prune a particular section out, that corresponding section of roots dies. So then it'll slow release fertilizer also from the mimosa tree. It'll release that slow release fertilizer. We don't care about the nitrogen fixing trees as much, so you always want to put those on the northernmost side of your trees that you actually care about for production, because the sun's swings south. So if you do want to do something like that, make sure you just put it on the northernmost side. And then just make sure that everything's outside of the drip line. So you can either do it all at once and just go through and do all your soil work and everything, and then plant everything the next year at the same time. Or you can plant in stages, like I already have an apple tree, and I want to plant some blueberry bush. I've already done the soil prep initially when I planted my fruit tree. So then you just add in your shrubs, and then you add in your, maybe your semi-dwarf tree or your ground covers and herbs. So you can do it like that too. And that might be more common for you because you might already have a tree in mind you want to use in this kind of system. It might be a little more difficult to manage weeds in this system since you're going to have to make sure you're not hurting the roots of your trees. That's just something to consider. Earthworks, mulching is my number one thing. Always mulch everything. It helps fight weeds. This is a little picture of doing some sheet mulching. So you can go crazy with it, or you can just throw, 4 inches of mulch out there. So. And then just making sure when you're planting, making sure you make the hole the proper size, and don't plant the graft union below the soil. That'll kill your tree dead. What do you mulch? All of those are good mulches. And here's an example of a gill that someone was doing in Arkansas. It's a mulberry gill. That thing is blocking the word. So they have some spring bulbs in there, daffodils, irises, and hyacinths, chives, bee balm and yarrow, strawberries for ground cover and food, echinacea, and then hyssop and catmint. Plant list ideas. I just went through some things that I thought would be cool to have in a food forest. So pear, apple, fig, mulberry, persimmon, black locust. Black locust is a nitrogen-fixing tree. So don't get the ones that have thorns on them because they'll be this long and they'll destroy your tires. Just make sure it says thornless if you ever buy a locust. Subcanopy, alder, apple, crab apple, black mulberry, fig, gomi, flowering quince, pawpaw. And then these are some different shrubs: aronia, elderberry, bush clover, juneberry, lavender. You can have roses. I threw in a couple ornamentals. You can see I'm pretty biased, but. And herbaceous, arugula, chamomile, columbine, milkweed for your monarchs, and then ground cover. And that's the fava bean that I'm going to try to grow next year. And this is a list of some. you can go on these websites and they'll actually have like lists of like plants and what their functions are. And so you don't have to, it makes it easier when you're doing your research. You can just go here and look through this. Perfect. Does anyone have any questions? I know I kind of blitzed through that, but that's kind of where I was at. You have a question?
No. Aaron, I know the fig tree has really shallow roots. So do you allow extra space, before you plant? So you don't mess up those roots?
A lot of times the trees will put out, the roots will go out at least 1.5 times the weight of the canopy. So you're going to probably be damaging the roots whenever you plant something. That's just kind of how that's going to work, unfortunately. The trees, 80 to 90% of any tree's roots are going to be in the top 12 inches of the soil. Yeah. They have like that big fibrous root mat, and then some of them will have that big taproot, but it's mostly in the top 12 inches.
Yeah, does this do well in a dry year like we're having this year? Or do you need good rain for it? Good rainy year?
You talking about establishment or just overall?
Overall.
Obviously, if it's raining, that's great because you don't have to water it as much. But if you mulch it properly and just make sure that you are on top of the watering, obviously if it's hotter, it's going to be harder to keep your plants alive. And if it's drier, so maybe in that instance, you put together a rain barrel system to help alleviate some of the water costs, or you start off small and work your way up. But forest habitats are supposed to be more resilient and more resistant to drought. And once those perennials get their roots going, they'll be more resistant than an annual. So.
Yeah. Can you go back to that last slide that had the websites, please?
Yeah, I can just send you these if you want, or you can take a picture.
Thank you.
Wait.
And these are all free, which is nice.
Free is good.
Aaron, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am?
When you were talking about when you trim off part of the tree, that the roots die, is that just specific for that tree, or what about the Japanese maple?
No, it's for all trees. That's why they don't recommend or prune off more than a third at a time. Because trees are like a suction, for evapotranspiration. They pull, the air in and then they transpirate, they do in and out. They're like a vacuum. So if those roots didn't die, they would be pulling more in than they could handle. So they cut off a section of roots when they do that. I'm not saying that 100% correctly, but it's been a while since I watched that video. So. One more looks like.
Two more.
Two more. I can't remember exactly. I think it's got orange berries, and it also fixes nitrogen. That's what I remember about it. I can't remember exactly where it's from. What's a gomichi? Guomi. I didn't want to go crazy on putting stuff in that you didn't know, but I kind of wanted to tease a little bit, so I threw that in there. But it also fixes nitrogen too.
I got a fig tree, and it's got figs all over it, but they're not ripening. It gets morning sun and maybe midday sun, but because it's not getting full sun, is that maybe why they're not ripening yet?
Yeah, they need that full sun to speed up the ripening process, because we got a fig tree on our place that's similar, and a lot of times right when they're about to ripen, the birds get them. Because we only have one fig tree, so the birds just hone in on it.
I got figs off of it before, but they didn't ripen that quick, not too many. This year, it's got figs all over it, but they're not ripening.
Yeah, that might also be nitrogen, but I think it's more sunlight. If they have too much nitrogen, it kind of slows it down because they put more energy into their vegetative growth than their. And it might also be like heat and everything too, so heat stress, depending on how much water it's getting. Awesome.
Thank you.
All righty, we're going to go to the agenda now. Marcia, will you give us our minutes report?
Yes, the October executive meeting minutes were published and also the board meeting minutes for October. And I want to thank Joyce for filling in for me at the executive meeting and doing the minutes for me. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Okay, they will be published as written. Thank you.
All right, next is Denise on our regular financials report.
The cash report for September and the income and expense reports for September were posted. If you had a chance to look at them, you can see where we spent. We had a wee bit of little money come in, but not much, but we spent a little bit more than a wee. So the balance in our account is $37,191.32. And the income and expense just simply shows you where you are in your committees, what you've spent, what's left in your budget. So are there any questions?
Would you repeat that word, so-and-so is?
I'm sorry, what?
Would you repeat that where the committee
I didn't,
has money left?
in the income and expense report. It shows what's been spent per year. If you're looking at the paper that was on your chair, that's the budget. So we'll look at that later. So keep in mind that we all know about pruning, and we're going to learn a little bit more about pruning. We'll talk about budget. So don't look at that for that kind of information. The income and expense report shows like year-to-date what was spent as of the end of September. And then it shows what's left in the budget. Any more questions? All right, thank you.
Okay, Lynn, can you give us our membership report?
Yes, I'm very pleased with the fact that we have 17,151 sanctioned hours turned in, which is almost 1,000 in the last 17 days. Somebody's got the message. We also have 1,123 non-sanctioned hours. So we have a total of 18,274 hours of work. And we have also an increase, 5,387 education hours. We have 89 present this morning. And I also want to brag that Garvin Woodland Garden had their awards party the other night, and we came out fantastic. We, of course, had the Rookie of the Year, which is Jan Gibson for out there. We had 2 Arbor Master Gardeners on the top 5 hours for the first year, which were, for 1 year, I'm sorry, which were Pam and Cheryl, Pam Stevens, Cheryl Coker. Alan Wright was the Horticultural Helper of the Year. Pam Stevens and Cheryl Vopart were the Volunteers of the Year. And both of our projects, SIG and GEMS, won the Service Group of the Year. We're very proud of them, and there was only a few hours difference in both groups, so they both got the honor. So, we also have 3 guests. Abigail Owens comes with her mom, so we're glad that Karen brings her. And then we have 2 of our online new members, Shelley Jones and Pam Newart, that are attending our meeting.
All right, it's my turn. On project guidance, we are set with new chairs for next year. I have a list I keep passing around. The new chairs will eventually let me know their assistants, and we'll have it completed and ready to hand out at the December meeting. Aaron, you have an announcement? Do you have anything other than?
I can talk about the in-person training.
I'm getting ready to start putting together the speaker lineup for the Master Gardener training, which is a whole month. Before I had last year, I didn't get told till like after Thanksgiving last year that I had to put the training together. So I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to get that put together. But I'm starting to put that together. And if you know anyone that's still interested, we're taking applications for the in-person training up until the 1st of November, and then we'll do our interviews for them in December. So if they want a link to apply, you can just send them to me and I can give it to them.
All right, Janann, you want to come up and tell us? Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped Sherry. I'm sorry, Sherry, mentors.
Okay, especially wanted to do it today because we have another first-year Master Gardener who has completed her hours as of the end of September. And I don't think she's here today, but it's Josie Goodman. So we want to congratulate her. And I do see Karen Owens here today. She completed hers a couple months ago, but I have your pen here if you'd like to come up. Thank you. The only other thing was CART. We have completed both the analysis portion of both of the projects for this year, Langston School and Habitat for Humanity project. So we're in the process of writing all that stuff up and then meeting with the sponsors. So we're almost done. Thank you.
Now, Junette is going to talk to us and announce the winners of our pie contest.
Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed our little Pie a la Mode event. I thought everybody did a wonderful job. I really did. Very impressed by some of those delicious pies. The first winner, number one, okay. Numero uno winner is our Chocolate Crunch. Barbara, please stand up. Yay, Barbara.
I think we'll be coming up.
Yes, we can actually, like to take your picture. And Linda, would you like to give them the?
Which
Oh,
Linda?
the little
Well, three of
gift.
us are sitting there. Which Linda are you?
Looking at you, Linda.
Oh,
The second winner is the white chocolate and raspberry. And I must tell you, I have that, it was delish. And that's Reggie. Reggie? Please come up. Join the crowd. Our third runner-up was the Apple Crumb by our very own Linda Fleming. Congrats. All right, ladies.
Okay, look at him first. Okay, look at me now. Good. Smile. Thank you.
A big round of applause.
Thank you.
for everybody. Thank you so much. The other thing I would like to talk about is our sign-up sheet for the Christmas buffet. We've got two that kind of were on the front area, and I'm going to just kind of distribute them, and if you have any ideas as to what you would like to bring for our Christmas buffet, please write it down. We've got salads, we've got different types of hors d'oeuvres, things of that nature, desserts. So if you could please do so, we would really appreciate it, because what we're going to do is, once we have the idea as to what you're going to be bringing, we're going to be also setting up place cards, so everybody knows what they're going to be eating. So anyway, I would really appreciate it if you could do so. Thank you.
One other thing along that line, we are not having the Elks provide anything for this Christmas buffet, get-together meeting. We are doing it all ourselves. So we do need people to help bring some main dishes. I'm gonna get my husband to smoke a couple of hams. Things that we have warming trays, they're gonna provide the silverware for us and the tea and water, no charge. But we do have to bring all the food. Okay, next, Cheryl, would you like to, oh, I'm sorry.
Is that?
November
It's,
December 12th.
oh, that's the 12th.
And we're gonna start probably at 11, because our group that is entertaining us has got to perform at 12. So we'll bring our food in and everything can be being served and stuff while our entertainment group is going on. Where is Miss Cheryl Volver? Would you like to come up here? No. Yes. Cheryl is giving us the nominations for the officers. Do not shoot her, do not boo.
Please don't.
Okay, for president is Trish Freeman this next year. We have treasurer Rebecca Tutton, and her assistant is Marsha Dobbs-Smith. Second VP is Lynn Johnson, and her assistant is that Anita? Anita Gibson? Annette, I always say it wrong. Secretary is Marsha Oliver. We do not have an assistant for her, so if somebody wants to volunteer, it would be much grateful. First VP is Elaine, and her assistant is Kathy Cersei.
All right, we will vote next month on that slate. So if anybody has any nominations from the floor or wants to suggest other parties, please contact Cheryl or someone on the executive committee. All right, now for the stuff that Gail took off on a cruise and left me to handle. I am going to talk about raising the dues. If you all would look at the budget, that's why we did not collect today. We want to discuss it. The executive committee came to a decision that we need to raise our dues. We're putting forth a motion to raise them for the fact that we are going to be short some monies for a couple of our committees next year. We need some more funds to help with youth activities and scholarship.
Raise how much?
I'm sorry?
How much?
How much? Oh, I'm sorry, it's on the paper.
I don't have paper.
$25 to $25. Okay, so I'm,
Wasn't it 15 previously?
Yes.
yes,
That's a budget output.
from 15 to 25. I am going to make a motion for this executive committee, even before we talk about the budget, because we have to approve that amount. I would like a show of hands, all in favor for raising the dues to $25. Okay, that looks like a majority. All righty, thank you. Oh, nay, okay, say nay. Joe, nay. Okay. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. All right, that's fine, I got it all. All right, next is, oh, I'm sorry.
Motion passed.
Okay, the motion passes to raise the dues for the upcoming years to $25 per year. Okay? All right, next is Denise.
Okay, so the budget was in your seat. You could sit on it. But we'll discuss it now. So we all know about pruning, and usually we take a third off. This year, we're taking 2/3 off. We had to cut the budget by about $25,000, just simply because we've done so well each year, and then every year gets more and more from the plant sale and the expo, garden expo. So in 2025, you probably all have heard, we've all talked about it, how it's going to be cut down. There were some issues, the date, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be much less. So we anticipate a cut of about 25,000. So that's why when you look at the budget, you may gasp. And just keep in mind that plants that are pruned, they do better afterwards. So we will come back. We will come back. So to begin with, we went ahead and plugged in the $25 increase in the dues. And so that gives us approximately $2,000 more income. And then we just plugged in some estimates, our best guesses. The plant sale income, we're hoping for $15,000. So keep in mind that if we do much better, and we do much better, we can, add that money to different places in our budget by a vote later, after we get the money. So there is one change. We had these printed up before we caught this. Since we increased the dues, and that's an addition of $2,000, we actually took out the small fundraiser of $200. We took that out. We can still have small fundraiser or plural. We can still do that. We're just not going to count on it, and we didn't put it in the budget. So as you go down, you may look and see that there's some zeros. So at this point, the incentives are at 0. So this was a kind of a luxury, and at this point, luxuries, get eliminated first. So you can look on down through here. That's the amount that we'll carry forward. As you can see, the Community Service Fund, we have already voted that to go to EHC for 2025. So that's that information. The Jean Licklider Scholarships, we opted not to add anything this year because of the decrease in funds. There is a carry forward of $440. And then basically, if you read the storage facility line, you can see that our goal is to return to 1 storage facility unit. We're paid through January, so after that, we're going to go back to 1. And really, that is about all that I would like to say. Are there any questions? Shoot, not me.
At the board meeting, please stand up. Yes. At the board meeting, we discussed the 4-H Foundation, and Aaron said he was going to talk to Jimmy, and Jimmy was going to approach that situation. So we still have $1,000 on the budget. Was that resolved?
Yes, we do. Evidently not.
We are still paying $1,000 to 4-H.
We will still offer a $1,000 scholarship next year, yes. Unless we're told different. I mean, yes, we're still doing that.
So Aaron, did you speak to Jimmy, and Jimmy speak to them, and it's already been decided?
Well, it's y'all's money. Y'all can vote how to spend it how y'all wish. We're not going to tell you how to spend your money. It was the recommendation from the office to keep it at 1,000, but y'all are the master gardeners. Y'all vote on how y'all spend y'all's money, and y'all approve the budget. So the office just felt that money was important for the community, but that's still up to y'all.
Okay, next question? Yes, way back there.
go to someone that's working with horticulture or agri?
The 4-H one?
Yes.
You know, when I came here in February, I was still learning. I'm not entirely sure how the 4-H works, to be honest, because I'm not the 4-H agent. I wasn't really even involved in the 4-H scholarship, so I honestly don't know, to be honest. I can figure out how the 4-H scholarship is awarded. I've just never even seen the application for it.
If you don't know much about it, how can we afford that if we're having money issues anyway? It seems like we need to know more before we give $1,000. If it's for horticulture, yeah, but if it's for agri, that's not our.
I can gather that information and you'll get a blast in your email.
Okay, so we are not voting until next month, so we do have time to look at these things. Go ahead, Carol.
Okay. We'll work very diligently to make $15,000. And you talked about if we made more, what we would do. What happens if we don't make $15,000?
We'd be okay.
We could do that. It's like,
Tricia.
See, you didn't call on me and it's just, you're gonna talk about.
Here, talking to this, because you got good stuff to say. If we approve the budget for the 4-H scholarship, just to get the budget approved, that does not mean that we can't look into it and decide not to pay it. And if we don't make our money, then we look at the budget and adjust it down.
Should we build that in writing if that's what we're planning to do? Yes.
About the,
Shouldn't we put it in writing that we will keep it at that level if we choose to do so? But if we do not make enough money, we will rescind that scholarship? My personal opinion is, if none of the other scholarships can make it, then this one should not make it either.
well, no, she's got 1,500 here for the Jean Licklider scholarship. It's on the second page. Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that if we are allowing for that possibility that we will not pay it out, then we should put that in writing somewhere, not just propose it today and vote on it next week on the eventualities. That's all I'm.
Well, we can put it in the minutes that that is our intention to look at it.
Is that a motion? Is that?
No,
Speaker's right behind me.
not now. Go for it. Let's do the budget.
But we could, you're saying there could be some flexibility.
Sure. We're gonna adopt a budget next month. And if something comes up, next year we change the budget. And when we had COVID, we had to go back in the middle of the year and just go, slash and burn.
I guess I'm just confused. And I'm just something. We have, excuse me.
Usually when you're
Just
We're trying to get that.
Right.
Okay, I think now try it.
Hello?
There, okay.
We have $37,000.
Put it at your mouth. Put the microphone to your mouth, Karen.
Okay, we have 37,000, is that right? This carry forward.
The carry forward is an estimate, and so that can be changed.
Okay, because that we started the year?
No, it has to be a balanced budget.
No, that's not a question.
Oh.
So the carry forward will be more accurate when we get to the end of the year.
Okay, that's my question. What are we going to get, what are we spending between now and the end of the year? That's going to be what?
I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
So her question is about the carry forward. So my understanding is, we just put that in as an estimate. So as you can tell, when you look at your income and expense report, we have not spent all of our budget. And it says, if I remember correctly, there's about $7,000 out there yet that we could spend. So when you all do your end of the year little luncheons, use your incentives, finish buying soil, whatever it is that you're going to do, and you turn that in, that will come off. So the 25,000 is just an estimate. And what we do with that, why that is on the third page and not on the first and second page, is because that's kind of spoken for. The 25 is what we have, so that the money that's spoken for will indeed be there. So like if the detention center greenhouse burnt down tomorrow, we would have 12,000 in there, approximately 12,000 in there. So that's just going to sit in there. So we're going to let that sit in there.
So what you're saying is that we're estimating that we are going to spend $12,000 before the end of the year?
No.
The difference between 25,000 and 37?
No. So really, in your mind, if you look at 37, you think 37 should be carried forward.
No, I just want to know.
You want it more closer. So maybe that number might be 30, because if it's 37 now and we've got 7,000 more to spend, that number may end up being 30. But 25 was a more conservative estimate.
So, but we were
basing the budget, the first 2 pages, on what only the income, what we expect next year.
Right, but we are also expecting the justification to raise the dues off of that estimate.
The estimate for next year, yes.
And the estimate.
Okay, if we end up with $30,000, that will be our carry forward. That's going to be savings. We don't know what's going to happen with the plant sale, and it might be that we need some of that 30,000, not next year, but the year after. So it's like, we're pruning, don't just throw away our money. Even if it's a good cause, we don't need to spend it.
Yeah, I'm curious, this $11,000 for the greenhouse, is that a yearly expense? Or is that a one-time expense?
That's a nest egg, like we're putting in the bank, you know, like you put your savings in the bank, that's just in, like, it's in the bank, sitting there, just in case something. Insurance.
All right, but in future years, you're not gonna put another 11,000 in. So we really are, if you would take that out, our future budgets are gonna be much lower without that 11,000.
So we don't own the land. The detention center lets us put that greenhouse on there. We don't own the property, so we can't insure. We can't buy insurance through that greenhouse. So that's y'all's way of self-insuring the greenhouse. If something were to happen to it, we could pay the other new ones and we can keep those up.
Yeah, but we don't need that every year. That stays there from year to year, right?
Stays there from year to year.
So you could almost, so you could almost subtract that from the 17,000.
You're, just look at, what we're gonna spend next year, look at the first 2 pages. Just look at those 2 pages, that's mainly what we're asking right now. So Jody, what would you like to say?
No, it was just the idea of it's an insurance policy for our greenhouse. It's not money that we'll ever spend, hopefully. But if there's a catastrophic failure, we can get the plumbing repaired, we can put a new roof on. It's that little nest egg, but there's no way for us to insure that property against damage.
So this budget is like, we're working with what's going to go into the checking account, and that kind of stuff is like what we would keep in the savings. So we're self-insuring that detention, that greenhouse.
Okay, everybody's getting restless. Any more questions, comments? And if you have them, please contact one of us, preferably Denise and Gail when she gets back. But this is not to be voted on until next month. Now, Jody reminded me that I did the motion wrong about raising the dues. The executive committee is making a motion that we raise the dues to $25 a year, not a month. Is there discussion about that? Is that correct, Jody? Okay. Is there any discussion? All right, I can't see you. Come on, I can't hear you. Come. We need a more portable mic.
I just want to say, $10 jump, that's significant.
Raise it up.
We have no idea on, anything, but $10 in this economy, I'm just a veteran, living on my disability and Social Security, raising 4 kids and feeding 8 grandchildren every night. $10 is a lot of money. A $5 jump, that's more reasonable. If you're going to do a $10 jump, you do that over a series of years, but not. And then the vote, I hope that don't count.
Thank you for your comments. The problem is, everything we have to buy, everything we do, like even buying pies or buying stuff for our different activities. But the main thing is buying stuff for the plant sale, buying the soils and our containers for our hanging baskets, which are our biggest. We have to buy that stuff, and that stuff has gone up. It's gone way up. So this to me is like a cost of living raise. So I'm gonna, wait, here comes Jody.
Really need the membership, let the membership talk. Okay. So let me just facilitate this a little bit. So is there anyone else that has a point that they would like to bring into the discussion? We really need to discuss this. Go ahead, Hildy.
The only thing I would suggest, rather than just having our hands raised, have the votes counted, so we know actually.
Suggestion to have the votes counted. Very good suggestion. Other items. Is there anything else people want to say about raising the dues? Any concerns with raising the dues? Yes.
Well, I'm with Dave. I think that a $10 jump is significant.
$10 jump is significant. Yes.
We did an estimate that if we raise the dues, we'll get $2,000 for next year's budget. What if people who don't want to raise the dues don't come and they're not going?
So there's a concern that if the dues are raised, that people will drop away and we won't get that amount. Okay, Susan?
If there's a difference in the dues and we're discussing some of those scholarships, would that offset that amount?
No. Other questions, concerns? Go ahead.
About the budget or about the dues?
About the dues. Yes,
If
Julianne.
there's- If there's a problem with increasing it $10, would there be a problem increasing it for $5?
So there's been a consideration, would $5 be a more reasonable number? Yes.
In the committee meeting, or whatever we went to last week.
Board meeting.
The board meeting, it was suggested that maybe if we keep it at maybe just a $5 increase, and people who wanted to donate more could do so.
So there was a suggestion that we would raise it just $5 and people who could afford or who wanted to could donate additional funding. So there is currently a motion on the floor and we are in discussion. Is there any further discussion? The motion again is to raise the dues to $25, which is a $10 increase for next year. Further discussion? Is there a motion to call the question? Tricia, is there a second? Okay. Sheila McClarty, sorry, I got 1,000 things in my head. And so we've called the question. All those in favor of calling the question? Aye. Opposed? Okay, so now we move on to the motion. So the motion now is for $25 dues for 2025. Is all those in favor? Raise your hand, so get a count.
Raise them high.
I see 10.
Yeah, maybe 11 or maybe 13.
Okay, be sure to record that in the minutes. All those opposed?
That's more.
I see a clear majority. So the motion fails. Is there a motion from the floor to adjust?
Motion to move it to $5.
Increase by 5.
Yeah.
So we have a motion then to, and I'm sorry.
Increase by 5, and if you want to donate.
So the motion is to increase the dues by $5. That would make it $20. And then if there are members that would like to donate additional funds, they are free to do so. James. James is seconding the motion. Is there discussion? I see no discussion. All those in favor? That's a clear majority. All those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much for your patience.
Okay. Denise is going to redo the budget for the 10th time, and we will send it out, constant contact, prior to November's meeting with the dues raised to $20 and whatever adjustments she has to make. All right, we're run over. Don't forget the plant swap.
Wait, we're not finished yet. I said I'm not finished yet. I have, I know we discussed the 4-H Foundation. I'm wondering about the $200 for SIG. That's come up multiple times over the years, and I'm wondering, here we are again. We give $200 to Garvin Gardens for SIG, and I'm just wondering, is that going to continue? I'd like a discussion on that.
Garvin is a
Is there a sick person here? Lynn, do you know anything about the donation? Sherry?
Sherry. Billy does.
The reason there is this fee, let's put it this way, for Southern Inspiration Garden is as follows. The Master Gardeners, the history of the Southern Inspiration Garden is that the Master Gardeners got monies from the legislature in 2006, 7 or 8, thereabouts, for us to use for a project. And at the time there was Sharon Bennett, Sharon Dent, there was Jackie Harper, there was Larry Averill, a whole bunch of people were involved together with Bob Byers and the other people at Garvin's, discussing if we could possibly put our Master Gardener project into a safe place, which was Garvin Gardens. And it was agreed on by this membership to put our project, not Garvin, our project into Garvin Gardens. And we are funding our project with that $200. Should we choose to change that, we can do that. But it is not a donation to Garvin Gardens. It's a donation to our garden in Garvin Gardens. That's the story. It was originally used as a down payment for the project, along with the monies from the legislature and from all those people like Sharon Dent, who went around to various different groups and begged and borrowed and pleaded money, and there are people like the Hasta Society, the Irish Society, the Daily Leaf Society, the people, the Master Gardeners down in Hot Springs, the Benton Master Gardeners, all those people helped us put that money together. And the money that currently comes from us and from other organizations is in a fund, and it is there to support the garden for the basic structure, for anything that breaks, and for a potential extension, I think is a good word to put it, to make it bigger. If we do that, we do. If we don't, we don't. But that's what that money is there for. It's similar, in my mind, right or wrong, as the detention center and greenhouse. It is our investment, and the $200 is put there for that purpose. It is not being spent any other way. And the money is being held as a fund at Garvin Gardens. It is not being used by Garvin Gardens. So that's how it works. We can change it, I'm sure.
All righty, we're gonna wrap this up.
No,
Any
I'm
more
not
questions?
Okay.
Sorry.
There are several other clubs that do the same thing, like she said, Hostas, the people in the village, the Daylily, the Iris Society, that would give a gift each year that goes into that fund.
Okay, so if that SIG project is equal to Hot Springs Village Xeriscape, the courthouse, Energy Park, all of our projects, and we get zero funding next year for any of our projects, remember, nobody is going to get any money for their project next year. So I'm wondering, why is SIG going to be different? Why is that going to be isolated? Over and above.
We
the
are the
rest of the-
sponsors. We, Garvin Garden is not the sponsors. The Hot Springs Village Xeriscape, theoretically, the village is the sponsors. The courthouse, the judge is the sponsor.
Okay.
In the case of SIG, the Master Gardeners are the sponsor.
Right,
Because
for
it's
your,
our garden.
for your projects, you have sponsors. So Master Gardeners do not pay for the plants that go into the xeriscape.
Yes, they do.
Well, they're not supposed to. Therefore, you do not get money to buy plants for
Right.
the xeriscape. But for SIG, we are the sponsors. We have to buy the plants for that garden.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
the difference.
Okay, and I didn't understand the difference because I thought our $200 was going to Garvin, so thank you, Hildy. I appreciate that explanation.
Okay, guys, we're gonna wrap it up. Wait.
I just want to throw something out here, and I know that this part's peanuts, but all these gifts and the grown people.
We can't hear, where's the mic? We're gonna have to use that, guys, because I can't hear you.
I know that what I've got in my budget, and believe me, this is hard for me to say, but all these grown people getting gifts, I mean, I'm willing to give it up if it means the difference between some kid getting a scholarship. Okay, I'll continue to buy all this stuff myself.
And you're
There it
not
is.
supposed to do that.
I know that, but it's happened.
All right, we're gonna promise wrap it up. We will redo this budget. I'll get it sent out, Lynn or I, by constant contact. Just make a note that the committee chair's tea is December 4th. Julianne and her group will take care of that. You can pay, since we passed $20, if you wanna pay your dues, you can pay them to Denise today. But we will collect them at the next two meetings. And our potluck dinner is December 12th. It's a week earlier. With that, is there anything else? Oh, y'all get your pies. Take your pies home. We are adjourned at what time?
147.
Somebody.
147.
147.